Issue that has come in from the Supreme Court that changed the dynamics where Delhi NCR is concerned. Owners of older petrol and diesel vehicles in Delhi NCR have received a breather of sorts after the Supreme Court on Monday ordered that no coercive action be taken for now against them. The interim relief applies to diesel vehicles over 10 years old and petrol vehicles over 15-year-old and will remain until the apex court hears the matter again in 4 weeks. Meanwhile, the Delhi government argued that the age-based ban 10 years for diesel, 15 years for petrol is arbitrary as it does not consider how well the vehicle is maintained or how much it pollutes. It further requested the court to review the 2018 ruling that banned vehicles based solely on age in light of changed circumstances, improved regulations and better scientific tools. All of this, viewers, in the backdrop of how vehicles were being picked up, end-of-life vehicles were being picked up and taken to dump yards and scrap yards. I want to quickly go to our big questions that we're asking our panelists. Can ban on old cars curb pollution? Old vehicles ban unscientific pollution fight. What is the real solution to it? Cutting across to Anumita Roy Chaudhary, Executive Director, Center of Science Environment, CSE, Wimlendu Jha, Environmentalist. Wimlendu, let's begin with you because you're a big advocate of the NGT order that end-of-life vehicles, especially 10 years of diesel, 15 years of petrol, should be kept off the Delhi NCR roads. Data, Wimlendu, doesn't seem to suggest as these vehicles being the primary contributor to pollution, though.
Sorry, I was not able to hear you properly, Preeti.
Wimlendu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Am I clear? Wimlendu, you've
Yes.
been an advocate of the NGT order that end-of-life vehicles be taken off from the Delhi NCR region. Having said that, Wimlendu, data doesn't quite seem to suggest that these are the vehicles that are the primary contributor of pollution where Delhi is concerned.
No, to the contrary, Preeti. Actually, data suggests very, very clearly that almost 50% of air pollution contribution in Delhi is because of vehicular and majority
Vehicular
of that
traffic,
is,
yes.
is
yeah.
Private
But
vehicles.
not
50%.
end-of-life vehicles, yeah.
Of course, but at the end of the day, we also have data to prove that end-of-life vehicles, which primarily means 10-year-old diesel vehicles and 15-year-old petrol vehicles, they actually, if you look at comparison between BS2 and BS6, BS2 is primarily 10-year-old diesel vehicles, there's 16 times more NOx levels emission that we get from BS2 level vehicles. Similarly, if you look at ICCT and several other studies that have been done nationally by the government or internationally, it clearly talks about that there's no comparison between old and new. And there's also no comparison between roadworthy and airworthy. In the air regime that we all are living in, where average air quality index is almost 300, 400, 500 in that sense, we are not looking at some holy certificate that almost like a dead PUC van that gives you, and that becomes like a holy certificate to tell you that your vehicle is fit. Every scientific data, imagine, by the way, in London, you have to pay 1,800 rupees per day more if your vehicle is older than 10 years. In Singapore, the vehicle gets deregistered if your vehicle is older than 10 years. And imagine the air quality index of a Singapore or a Paris or London and Delhi. And therefore, I think this is stemming out. This entire frustration is coming out of this middle class, affection, nostalgia, love, inconvenience for vehicle. Of course, one day they would like to complain about bad air, but at the same time, they don't want to let go of their BMW and Mercedes. How can an old vehicle with old technology and old combustion system, old fuel sensors be better than the new ones? And at the end of the day, what is more important? Fine, a middle class aspires to find a vehicle, but also a middle class aspires to live longer and have a asthma-free lung in that sense. So it's a question of priority rather than convenience. It's a debate that shouldn't even have happened. Fine, 4 weeks from now, Supreme Court is actually going to take a decision. Hope it's not middle class that prevails over the lungs and the overall, life expectancy that we're talking about. 10 years of life goes. That is government's own admission. Is that more important than the vehicles?
Well, that's a question we can pose to Anumita Roy Chaudhary there. But Anumita, many look at it, what the Delhi government started as a populist measure to please the middle class where Delhi was concerned. And even though there is no direct correlation to the end-of-life vehicles contributing to the pollution, like the figures that Vimlendu gave. Overall, it is vehicular pollution, that makes Delhi suffer the most where bad air is concerned. You're on mute, Anumita. Unmute yourself. Go ahead. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Right. So there is no disagreement over the fact that all vehicles which were originally designed to meet much weaker emission standards and with wear and tear, they pollute more and emit more. And therefore, we require a fleet replacement and renewal strategy. But the question that we are raising, that to address that issue, to reduce the pollution contribution from the older fleet, is blanket age ban the solution and the answer? And that's where we are saying that that is not the most appropriate way to address this. It is the strategy, and much more refined strategy is needed to address that issue. So when I say that, I want to say that now scientific studies are also pointing out that overall, older vehicles do pollute more than the newer. But it is more important to identify and detect the worst polluters. And those polluters can also be in the relatively newer age bracket as well, due to some technical default or some other reason. So it is therefore we need an on-road, a much more advanced on-road emissions monitoring and roadworthiness test to identify the unfit and grossly polluting vehicles. That's the first strategy. And second is that come up with incentives and disincentives like scrappage incentive to promote more voluntary scrappage and incentivize people to replace these older vehicles with zero emission electric vehicles and so forth. And we must keep in mind that the government of India has already come up with rules that how the commercial vehicles, for instance, must go to the automated testing centers for more advanced testing for identification of unfit and end-of-life vehicles. But implementation of that has remained very weak still. So we need strategy to address the problem, because otherwise we will be shifting the problem around.
I'm going to give the both of you just 30
30
seconds each, because Vimlendu, the fact is with one brush stroke, you can't put all the end-of-life vehicles together. There are some that are in great condition, and it's some, how people keep it. You need to look in a little deeper and maybe make some distinction in this.
So no doubt, Preeti, but imagine when your city is in ICU, you cannot offer it paracetamol. It needs surgery and it needs everything that needs to be done. Indeed, as in alongside looking at private vehicle regime, we need to look at public transport. As in the main question that we need to ask is that why is our public transport regime so dilapidated? We need safe, affordable, last mile, efficient public transport. And perhaps once we have that, there may not be a need to really aspiration of buying private vehicles. But as of now, I think, based on that logic, as in just because 40 years we've been driving that vehicle, 40 years farmers have been burning stubble. How many then, based on that logic, we should not do anything, wait for October, November, and then wait for next year too.
Can I just 30 seconds, Ms. Chaudhary, make your final points.
So what we are asking for, come up with the right strategy, and which is identify the grossly polluting vehicles and Supreme Court has already asked for the remote sensing monitoring, which is much more advanced than the PUC system, identify them and then find a way to get rid of them. So it is not a blanket ban that is practical, and we can't just keep dumping our vehicles on other regions who are also battling pollution.
All right, I appreciate both of you for joining us. Thank you. Very strangely, you can link it to the dogfight, literal dogfight that is going on in the NCR and Delhi region, where the order of the Supreme Court seemed to suggest that you have to keep out all 9 to 10 lakh dogs away from the streets in the next 8 weeks in shelter. So it's a similar kind of debate that is playing out there. We're going to leave it at that. Thank you for joining us.